My first guest, Chrissy King, is a writer, educator, and former strength coach who says decades of vicious yo-yo dieting and obsessive body images led her to be one thing: unhappy. Chrissy worked for years on breaking free from her insecurity, and she's sharing that with a lot of people. It's a red-hot book. It's out now. It's called The Body Liberation Project. Essence magazine calls it an antidote to the toxic diet culture. And that's a struggle many people are having and many people can relate to. Take a look real quick.
One of the things that I remember in high school was having a close friend of my sister's calling me fat and referring to me as her fat sister.
When I was a teenager and going to all these different clothing stores, and the only thing that I could fit into were a pair of earrings.
My relatives would post me and tag me on Facebook photos, and I would be mortified. I would untag myself, block them. Like, I didn't want anyone to know that I was fat. Like, I thought it was something that could be hidden.
A core memory of mine was a friend telling me in high school that I would be pretty when I lost weight.
When I was diagnosed with an eating disorder, I literally laughed in my doctor's face. There was no way that I believed that I could have an eating disorder because I live in a fat body.
I was 5'8" by the 3rd grade, and I felt like those 90s standards of beauty, the Pamela Anderson look, was something I could never achieve. But the one thing I could try to control is I could try to be skinny.
Chrissy King wrote The Body Liberation Project after she says she spent most of her teenage years and her 20s focused on shrinking.
When I was in my leanest body and most physically fit, I was in fact more miserable than I had been before, in every sense of the word. In reality, I just found more things that I needed to fix.
Chrissy makes the case that modern diet culture has convinced too many people to demonize parts of their own bodies when there's nothing wrong.
Cellulite, stretch marks, hip dips, body hair, all of these things aren't actually imperfections at all. We've all been sold the lie that the way our body looks is the magic. But our bodies are simply the container that house all the incredible magic that is within every single one of us.
Stand down, please welcome acclaimed author of The Body Liberation Project, Chrissy King. All the responses. So happy to have you. Have a seat. You know, I was watching the audience react to what you were saying, and I was so struck by those words about how we view our bodies versus what you want us to see, which is this vessel that is transformational, and it's ours.
Yeah, absolutely.
When did you first realize that the toxic diet culture was something that really has a hold on all of us in some way?
Absolutely. I think for me is when I realized like how deep in diet culture I was. As I kind of alluded to in the video, I was in the thinnest body I'd ever been as an adult. I was more physically fit than I'd ever been. Like, people would compliment me all the time about how great I looked. And I was miserable. And every time I looked in the mirror, I felt like I need to lose more weight. I need to change this part of my body.
You don't normally show before and after
No,
pictures. You stopped showing before.
Yes.
6 years ago, you stopped showing before and after pictures. But you gave us permission to show these pictures because at your thinnest, you were your most unhappy.
The most unhappy I'd ever been because it was never enough. And no matter like how much I fixated on losing weight and changing the shape of my body, there was always something else. And it really didn't matter like how much external validation I was getting. I felt like not good enough in my body.
So much of our struggles in life start in childhood, right?
Absolutely.
We know that. Yeah. And you talk about being 5'8" in the 3rd grade. You were at a predominantly white school. And your brothers gave you a nickname because you're laughing about it now. And I didn't want to say it, so I'm gonna let you say the nickname they gave you.
They called me Jolly Green Giant.
Yeah. And now we can pick out which one you are in this picture. It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
And that name that your brothers were teasing you starts to seep into the mind.
Yeah. And I think I was surrounded by people who didn't look like me, right? Everyone's small, petite, thin, blonde. I looked like the teacher in that picture, right? And I had curly hair, and I started to feel like I didn't feel beautiful. Yeah.
I never heard anyone articulate it in the way that you did, where you said, I saw Pam Anderson and I knew I couldn't be that. I wasn't gonna be white, I wasn't gonna be blonde, but I could be thin.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what you started to chase this dream. You 13 years old, kept a food journal. You required yourself at 13 to get on a scale every day. You said in your journal you would have salad and no dressing. A piece of fruit. You even counted the pretzels, making sure you ate just 23. I read that, I get a little emotional now, I started crying.
Yeah.
Because that's like, you're a baby.
I was a baby thinking about that.
And you're now writing down, I can only eat 23 pretzels.
And I think I must have like read that was a serving size.
Yeah.
And when I first read that journal, I started crying because I'm like, I felt so bad for younger me to be.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
I felt like
Yeah.
I tried to visualize this little girl. She's 14. She's in a school, trying to fit in, and you're having a piece of fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really sad when I think back to that. And I mean, I spent like all of my teenage years into my early 20s, like yo-yo dieting, fixating on my weight, trying to make myself smaller. And as you already said, that was like and I didn't have the words, the language at that time, but that was like my ideal way this was my proximity to beauty, right? Especially when you have Eurocentric standards of beauty. I can't do all those other things.
But I can be thin.
But I can be thin. That's something I can achieve.
But at some point, because listen, I'm in daytime TV. We've had decades and decades of diet shows and all of that. This is not new, but the way you talk about it is that at some point you found a way to liberate yourself, right? You contrast body positivity with liberation. What's the difference in the body positivity versus the liberation you want people to feel?
Absolutely. So I think body positivity is a term that like a lot of people are familiar with, and I think it's a great introduction to thinking about our bodies differently. But for me, body positivity a lot of the time focuses on like self-love and just love your body and all of those things that sound really nice, but are really also hard in practice. But it's a great place to start. But I talk about liberation because liberation means freedom, right?
Yes.
And that's what we want.
Yes.
Yeah.